They smiled, wore crisp uniforms, and carried whips. Behind the barbed wire of Ravensbrück, Hitler's primary concentration camp for women, these female guards were not just silent accomplices. They were executioners in skirts. While most history books focus on the victims, few ask, what happened to the women who ran this hell? What became of the guards who beat, tortured, and selected women for death? Some were sentenced and hanged after the war. Others disappeared into the crowd, nameless, faceless, unpunished. And then there were those whose fates were carried out in secret. Their deaths hidden behind military protocol or post-war silence. This is not just a story about justice. It's about revenge, silence, and the uncomfortable truth that evil didn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looked like a woman in uniform. These are the hidden executions of the female guards of Ravensbrück. Ravensbrück was unlike any other Nazi concentration camp. Established in 1939 near Fürstenberg, Germany, it was designed exclusively for women, the only major camp of its kind. Over the course of the war, more than 130,000 women from over 20 countries were imprisoned there. They were political dissidents, Jews, Romani women, resistance fighters, Jehovah's Witnesses, and others deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime. To maintain control over such a vast female prisoner population, the SS trained and deployed an estimated 3,500 female guards, known as Aufseherinnen. These women were not drawn from Nazi elites. Many were ordinary working-class Germans, recruited with promises of good pay, authority, and housing. Once trained, they were empowered to enforce Nazi discipline with lethal consequences. The training of these guards emphasized absolute obedience, harsh discipline, and emotional detachment. Many rose through the ranks by demonstrating cruelty and loyalty. Dorothea Binz, for example, became known as one of the camp's most feared figures. She trained other guards to deliver beatings and perform selections for execution with efficiency and calm. Though the SS chain of command was male-dominated, these women operated with deadly autonomy. Like Greta Bosel and Ruth Neudeck, played central roles in the camp's extermination machinery. Others became notorious for sadistic behavior, selecting inmates for death transports, participating in medical experiments, and tormenting prisoners for sport. This background is essential for understanding what happened when the war ended and why justice for these women would become a complex and often secretive process. At Ravensbrück, death came in many forms: starvation, disease, medical torture, and systematic murder. While not initially conceived as an extermination camp, Ravensbrück evolved into one of the deadliest camps in the Nazi system. By 1945, it had become a key site in the regime's efforts to eliminate those deemed unworthy of life. Executions were both routine and improvised. Prisoners were often selected for death through casual roll calls, where guards pointed to women who looked weak, sick, or simply unpopular. These selections frequently led to transport lists, sending victims to euthanasia centers like Bernburg or Hartheim, where they were gassed. Ravensbrück itself eventually installed a gas chamber in early 1945, allowing on-site mass murder. Up to 6,000 women were gassed in the final months of the war. Female guards played a chillingly direct role in this machinery. Many participated in selections, standing beside male SS officers and gesturing toward prisoners with a nod or wave. Dorothea Binz was infamous for her cruel efficiency in these moments. Greta Bosel is quoted as saying, "If they cannot work, let them rot," when asked about prisoners too ill to perform labor. But beyond the organized mass killings were darker, less formal acts of execution, often hidden from records. Some guards beat women to death in secluded areas. Others conducted unauthorized shootings during roll calls or in punishment cells. These murders were often unrecorded, undocumented, and unnoticed by official Nazi channels, making them secret in both intent and legacy. After liberation, survivors told of guards who would single out prisoners for brutal reprisals, disappearing them without a trace. In some cases, these female SS guards used their power to settle personal vendettas, eliminate perceived threats, or simply assert dominance. Because many of these killings were not part of the formal Nazi killing apparatus, they slipped through the cracks during post-war investigations. What makes these acts so haunting is not just their cruelty, but their invisibility. The victims' names were lost, their deaths unacknowledged, and the perpetrators, in many cases, walked free. While the world would come to know the gas chambers and mass transports, these secret executions, committed in back rooms and shadowed corners, remain among the most elusive crimes of the Holocaust. When the Allies liberated Ravensbrück in April 1945, they uncovered horrors beyond imagination. Emaciated survivors, mass graves, and hastily abandoned killing equipment. But justice didn't come swiftly or evenly, especially for the camp's female guards. Unlike their male counterparts, the female SS guards were often underestimated, their crimes dismissed as less severe. However, a handful were brought before military tribunals in what became known as the Ravensbrück trials, 1946 to 1948. These trials, held by British authorities, were among the few that focused specifically on female perpetrators of the Holocaust. Dorothea Binz, perhaps the most notorious of them all, was sentenced to death for her brutal role in selections and executions. She was hanged on May 2, 1947, along with several other former guards. Greta Bosel, known for her indifference to human life, met the same fate a day later. Ruth Neudeck, who had commanded execution squads and beaten prisoners to death, was hanged in 1948. Margot Dreschel, another Ravensbrück guard, was captured by the Soviets, swiftly tried, and executed in 1945, likely without much ceremony or record. Margaret Raab, despite being implicated in selections for gas chambers, received a life sentence but was released early. Yet for every guard who stood trial, many more escaped justice. Some fled, changed identities, or simply blended back into post-war German society. Others were handed short sentences or never prosecuted at all. Many of the crimes committed, especially the informal, personal executions carried out within the camp, lacked sufficient evidence, surviving witnesses, or even names for the victims. These shortcomings created a strange and unsettling reality that while justice was served publicly for a few, many other female guards faced punishment in silence, or not at all. In some cases, there are credible suggestions of off-the-record reprisals. Soviet troops were known to execute SS personnel on the spot. Some guards may have been killed by liberated prisoners. Others, it's speculated, were executed by Allied or resistance forces without formal trials, their fates left out of official records. These are the secret executions, deaths carried out without the pomp of tribunals, without headlines, and often without graves. They represent a different kind of justice, one driven by rage, immediacy, and the chaos of war's end. The story of the female guards of Ravensbrück and their fates remains riddled with unanswered questions, contradictions, and silences. While some were tried and executed publicly, many others were never identified, never charged, and never heard from again. Why? The answer lies in the fractured landscape of post-war Europe and the limitations of both justice and memory. One major issue was documentation. The chaos of the war's end meant that many camp records were destroyed or abandoned. Witness testimonies were often inconsistent, clouded by trauma or time, and the nature of Ravensbrück's internal violence, with many killings done informally or without witnesses, made prosecution difficult. There's also the uncomfortable question of gender. Historians have long debated whether the post-war world was reluctant to fully accept women as capable of monstrous acts. Were female guards overlooked because they didn't fit the image of the brutal Nazi? Did society prefer to see them as manipulated, misguided, or simply following orders? These views may have allowed some to escape scrutiny. Furthermore, survivor accounts sometimes conflicted with trial records. Some guards accused by multiple witnesses were acquitted. Others were never charged despite damning testimonies. The patchwork nature of the trials, divided between allied zones, governed by differing standards, meant justice was inconsistent. And then there's the matter of the secret executions, rumored retaliations, unrecorded deaths, and vigilante justice. These are hard to confirm, but impossible to dismiss. Ultimately, the debate is not just about what happened, but how we choose to remember and what we choose to forget. The story of Ravensbrück's female guards is not just a tale of cruelty, it is a reflection of how justice falters in the aftermath of atrocity. Some perpetrators were hanged, others vanished into obscurity, and many crimes remain buried in silence. History has preserved the names of a few, but countless others remain unnamed, both victims and killers alike. The secret executions, whether through courtroom judgment or wartime revenge, are pieces of a puzzle we may never fully complete. And so we're left to ask, how many names were lost in the shadows, and will we ever truly know them?